Hello, I think we're live. I mean, this kind of music just right before the presentations, it gives you a really good drive.
Fires me up, Maria.
So yeah, um, well, I think I want to refer to Lilith. We are live and everybody can hear us and see us. Okay, right? I typically give a couple of minutes for people to join. So yeah, let's get started. Well, I'll probably go first. Well, thank you, Tyler and Grant, for accepting this invitation for this webinar for a very, very long time. Our community, we're asking for a PPC webinar, and here we are. Grant and Tyler are great friends of mine, and we have worked on a couple of projects together. They're representing Duo Digital agency. They're focused on PPC. And yeah, for some of our clients, I was really impressed by the work and the results we were receiving. So yeah, here we are, guys. As I said in my promo video, I'm bringing you the best PPC experts to show you some case studies, walk you through their processes, and give you a little bit of intro about PPC overall. So
Yeah, Maria, thank you so much for the introduction. Just to quickly introduce our agency, Grant and I. So we are the two founders of Duo. We actually own two different agencies, Duo Strategy, which focuses on B2B SaaS companies, and then Duo Digital, which focuses on local service and home service businesses. Our background, so we started the agency in 2019. And we've always been focused on the paid advertising funnel. So obviously that relates to Google search and PPC, meta ads, LinkedIn ads, building out great landing pages that convert that traffic at a high rate. And ultimately, our job is to produce leads at a cost-effective rate for our clients and figure out that math equation that is going to into a scalable marketing funnel that allows you to, really be able to formulaically grow your business through paid advertising. So that's Duo in a nutshell. Today, we're going to cover PPC fundamentals. We're going to cover strategies for SaaS companies, strategies for local service, then roll over a couple case studies and run through some Q&A. So without any further ado, I'm going to pass off to my co-founder, Grant, who's going to start walking you guys through some of the PPC fundamentals.
Hello, everyone. So to start this off, we're just going to go through what we consider our fundamentals of PPC. It's a little bit nuanced. We're not going to go through super basic stuff, but I think all the stuff we're going to share is what we just find to be the most helpful, especially when starting out. So the first thing I want to go through is really just match types. And you may have heard this before, like what kind of match types to use. There are a few different ones, and they do differ quite a bit. At Duo, for most of our, again, home service companies, we actually typically just use exact match kind of across the board.
Also, Grant, just to dive in here for a second, not to cut you off. When Grant mentions match types, just so everybody's clear, we're talking about keywords on Google search. When you're putting together an ad campaign, obviously you're going to be choosing keywords that you are bidding on, right? So if you are a B2B SaaS company that sells productivity software and you want to have a best productivity app for industry, that could be a keyword. And there are a couple different ways to actually structure that keyword within the Google Ads platform. And those three are exact match, phrase match, and broad match. So Grant's going to talk a little bit about why we choose what we choose and things to potentially avoid with these three things.
It's pretty much very similar to what we're doing in SEO as well, because the core, right, in the post PPC and in SEO is the keyword research, starting off with that. And like all of these types are pretty much very similar to what we're doing as well.
Yeah, it's not too far off. And I mean, with phrase and broad match, as been mentioned before, we don't use too much of it. And so this does kind of depend on whether you're a SaaS company or whether you're a local service company, but really matters on whether you have intent for those searches. So exact match is going to be very specific, right? If you want to really bet on, let's say you're a moving company near me, you'd want to have exact match on because that's exactly what those keywords will be. And you know that they're getting search volume. With phrase match and broad match, those are going to be much wider nets that you're casting for keyword and keyword volume. This is interesting. This is kind of old school, but you would really home in a lot of ways. Get a ton of keywords in there that might be all over the place, and you'll start to understand what people are searching and how they're searching, and then add in a ton of negative keywords, which is a keyword you would add to say, don't bid on this every single week. And then you'd eventually get to what looks like an exact match campaign over time. If you have confirmed search intent and you have a really easy keyword, again, like a moving company near me, or CRM software for SEO agencies, something like that, right? You're very clear, you have product market fit, you know what people are searching, exact match makes the most sense. And there's no point in spending money on keywords that you know aren't going to convert. If you have a software or a service that is more broad and you really don't know what people are searching, it can make more sense to go with phrase and broad match to get a better understanding of what people are looking for and moving forward with. So most of the time we stick to exact match. Again, we have some companies that are, again, newer and trying to figure things out and just want to test some stuff out. We'll go phrase and broad. And then I'll go through a couple other campaigns as well that kind of bring these things back in. But we'll go over that in a second.
Yeah, and I just think like one important point here, right, is with exact match, you have the best grip on the traffic quality. Like you are going to be bringing in clicks that you can feel confident are, going to be related for your service. The more you get into phrase match and broad match, the more you're kind of putting it in Google's hands, and you're more likely to, potentially bring in some clicks that may not be quite as qualified as an exact match. And so you typically see cheaper cost per clicks with phrase match and broad match, but your quality of traffic may go down slightly. And so it's a bit of a balancing act between how can I, generate traffic at a cost-effective rate while still maintaining quality when it comes to the clicks that we are generating.
The nice way we're doing this, kind of, I'm trying to, cross some parallels between the SEO and etc. In fact, if you remember, we were advertising the digital PR together, sometime our service digital PR. And then what happened is we already had that page ranking pretty good on the search results pages. And then in the search console, we had already attributed queries and clicks coming from those queries, which is the same as keywords. And then did that help you at all with the keyword research, or kind of already having an idea about the keyword intent?
Kind of, honestly. And it's funny, I'm going to go through it right now. At the end of the day, we have to rely on what's actually being searched from a Google Keyword Planner standpoint and showing us what we're paying, or people are paying for those keywords. Ultimately, we want to know what's getting volume and if it's worth even bidding on, because it used to be back in the day, I'll go through this in a sec, so keyword research, it's a perfect kind of segue in. Back in the day, you used to be able to bid on any keyword. You used to call them long tail, right? You're still able to bid on long tail keywords. So you could type in kind of anything on Google Keyword or Google Ads and have you bid on those keywords. You no longer can do that. So Google will only let you bid on keywords that have a certain level of volume. Basically, you have to have anywhere from 10 to 100, but really it's around 100 searches per month, either nationally or in your local area or whatever it might be, in order to bid on it. And so ultimately, we kind of have to go off of what Google Keyword Planner tells us, or what any of these other tools are. So, for example, if anyone here has SEMrush or SpyFu, any of those kinds of companies, I know you probably use a ton of those, Maria. You can use those for Google Keyword Research. It's totally fine. They are expensive though, and they're more for organic. They're more for organic kind of SEO. For the most part, I don't think you need anything beyond Google Keyword Planner. It's going to be the most accurate data, especially cost data, and just it's free. So you just need to create a Google Ads account. A lot of people try to use those other platforms. And overall, I think Google Keyword Planner is much more effective. And I'm even going to show you really how easy it is to review. Any questions before I move into that kind of demonstration? No?
All good.
So this is Google Keyword Planner. If you just simply create a Google Ads account, where you go to Google Keyword Planner, just type it on Google. You can open it up. They'll make you create an account if you don't have one already. You're going to head over to discover new keywords, and I'm just going to do a random example. Let's say you have a AI CRM software, and then you can type in, AI CRM software for SaaS. And then you could also put in your website as well, or a competitor's website, and then you can put in get results. And this is for the entire United States. and you're going to see all of this populate now with your top of page bid low rate, a top of page bid high rate. This is basically what you can expect to pay. So between $11 and $36 for AI CRM software, right? You can see average monthly searches, 100 to 1,000. That's healthy. 1,000 to 10,000. AI CRM, obviously, this is a keyword, right? That's going to get a ton of volume, but also probably a lot of unqualified traffic. It's also pretty expensive. And so depending on what your budget is, you can bid on something like this, but ultimately this might get you a lot of unqualified traffic depending on what you're doing. This is super broad, right? I'm sure a lot of your guys' software is a little more nuanced than this. And so it'll come in with different bids, but it's give you a very good idea of what you're going to expect to pay. And then even from this look, you can actually choose some of the keywords if you're in your Google Ads account, and then save those keywords or add those keywords to create a plan for your Google Ads campaign.
Yeah, and I think to add on to your question earlier, Maria, of that intent traffic that you were driving with the SEO and like where that can be helpful, this is certainly a place, right? If we have those existing terms that you're ranking for and we know are driving qualified clicks, we can come in here, add those keywords to the keyword planner. It will provide us with obviously the data for those exact keywords for what the cost is to bid on them, but it'll also give us suggestions for other keywords that are likely similar to them that could help us expand, the keywords that we're targeting to drive that qualified traffic.
Yeah, the reason I was asking is because Google has its own algorithm of identifying the intent, right? And then it's a little bit slightly different in PPC, because most likely if you, and correct me if I'm wrong, if you have a relevant page and if you bid, you have a good bid, you'll be shown for the keywords. But in the Google search, you need to earn that position by being relevant enough and etc. for the keyword intent. Meaning like if, for example, we start a new PPC campaign, but we already have a ranked page and we know already associated keywords that are performing in the top 10 results, that gives us a good clue about that the intent is, for example, commercial, and Google itself associated those keywords. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely something we do. I don't hit on too much in the deck. I mean, those in Google Ads, and I didn't want to get into quality score, optimization score too much, because I don't want people to think that it matters that much, because in Google Ads, you do get a score, right, of how relevant all of your landing pages, your copy, all that good stuff. And it is nice to have a good quality or optimization score, but we've had campaigns with the worst quality optimization score ever, and they do great. We've had campaigns where they have the best quality optimization score and they don't do well. And so Google even says in their documentation that they actually aren't indicative of any like progress. They don't matter that much to the campaigns, but it is just good to see. For a while, and still a lot of our campaigns, we do add a keyword section into the landing page that hit on the main keywords that do drive up the optimization score. But again, we haven't seen it really make that much of a change to like performance of campaigns. So it is helpful to do. You will increase your rankings on like the optimization score, quality score stuff. And so Google says they love that, but ultimately we just haven't had any conclusive evidence on our campaigns that show that they make that big of a difference. But it is good to have. Doesn't hurt.
And then I've got another question. Well, you're saying that the Ahrefs and SEMrush and etc. are expensive, and I do agree on that. And I do also, I mean, you didn't mention this, but it's highly inaccurate, the data that they provide, because they're third party. Sometimes we build a page that in the Ahrefs, it shows almost like 10 search volume, which ends up being the best performing page on our website. With plenty of impressions and etc. So I know that the data is inaccurate, and the Google Planner is. However, I saw that in your account of Google Planner, you have ranges, right? It doesn't show you exact keyword. Is it always the case, or you need to have some type of an account to show the volume?
It'll always show you what I'm looking at right here for the most part. Sometimes you get ad impression share attendant depending on what you're looking for, but for the most part, it's always top of page and like the low and high. Sometimes low and high don't always come up, but you always get a number here for the most part. But yeah, it'll look like this for pretty much everyone and tell you what the competition is. I think for the most part, we're always just looking for keywords that are getting enough volume. If you're a local service company, for example, right, and I'm going to use moving again because we're going to talk about Chris's company in a bit. we've had clients before that want to bid on these specific kinds of keywords, right? Like moving, what are the best movers, in Glendale, California, or like the kind of longer tail stuff, or even like, how to move, like stuff like that, right? Where you're bidding on longer tail and they think it's a good idea. Ultimately, though, if you have a restricted budget, $5,000, $10,000, even less than that, $3,000, you're better off just bidding on the keywords that are getting enough volume because there's enough volume to share, right? There's enough volume to kind of get your real estate in. And so if you have a small budget, you should really just focus your budget towards 5, 6 keywords that are going to be high intent, the right kind of traffic, the right kind of people. It's worth it to go pay more money for that than to go pay $3 for a keyword that you're like, ooh, we're getting it for $3, but it's not going to convert. You're not sure if the traffic is serious. You're not sure if they're actually going to do anything. You might get really low CPC, but ultimately it's typically just better to spend the money on those keywords and get shown because your conversion rate is going to be so much higher for those keywords.
And then the average monthly searches in here is a range, essentially like 1,000 to 10,000. It's a huge gap. I mean, it can be anywhere between 2,000 to 10,000 volume, right? And what I meant is that Ahrefs, at least it gives some kind of a data of an each gap. Always like this, that gives a range, or you need to have a paid account or something like this to show it.
Yeah, to speak on that, Maria, when you are, I think, actively paying like for campaigns, like we actually don't run Google Ads campaigns for Duo Strategy. We obviously run them for our clients, but we're not running paid ourselves. You do get a more exact average searches, and you'll also get a graph that essentially shows like the search volume by month. So like, for example, I just looked up AI CRM software in a client that is running ads, and we've got like 320 searches per month for that specific keyword. And so you will get like the exact number when you activate your ads there.
Amazing.
Cool. So now I just want to talk about Performance Max and AI Max within the Google platform. I'm sure anyone who's been inside of Google or talked to a Google rep has heard about these two kinds of campaigns. So I just want to touch on it a bit and kind of just go over it and make sure everyone knows what these are, because they'll be pushed on you hard by Google if you create an account or you talk to a rep. So the first one here to the left is Performance Max. This is a type of campaign within Google. Google, as you probably know, has a ton of different products. They have a suite of products, right? They have YouTube, they have Gmail ads that you can see, right? They have Maps ads, they have PPC ads that everyone's used to, and then they have display. They have a ton of products. I think it's like 11, total. Performance Max is a campaign where you give it everything you got. You give it all of your headlines, all of your creative, everything that you guys have. And then Google, and it's kind of AI, will go put together random combinations of like those assets and then display them across all of their channels. So YouTube, display, again, everything. There are benefits to this. It is a ton of traffic. It is super cheap, right? You might have a $45 cost per click on PPC, and it'll suddenly be less than $1, right? The caveat to this is that it is all over the place with traffic quality. You're going to have super low CPCs, but you're going to get a lot of bots. You're going to get a lot of spam. You're going to get a lot of just random traffic coming to the site. However, it will be cheap. And for a lot of clients, we do really good results with Performance Max. A lot of clients we do really bad. It's gotten better. It was the beginning. It was really, really all over the place. But really, it's just you got to be willing to spend and let this kind of channel learn. It is a kind of a black box. There isn't a ton of insights you can get from it, but it's worth doing if your budget is big enough. Like that's who it's really for. If you can spend, if your budget's anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 a month, it's worth it to have Performance Max on a small budget, test it, iterate, and try just to get it to be more efficient, because you might get 5 leads or 10 leads on Performance Max and maybe 90% of them are bad, but those 1 or 2 good ones might be the same cost because it's so cheap as getting 1 or 2 leads in general PPC. So Performance Max is interesting. It's kind of polarizing, I'd say, in the ad sphere. Some people think it's just a way for Google to like monetize the channels they don't make money from. And then other people do see the benefits. Again, it's just, to me, it's a way you can get keywords at a cheaper rate if possible. Does that make sense?
Great. Can you talk a little bit about how conversion data plays into Performance Max and its effect on your performance?
Yeah, I mean, The conversion data is probably the only true lever you can pull in a Performance Max campaign, meaning the types of conversions that you put in. So the higher level conversions like form submission or calendar submission or calendar, like if you get a calendar booking, or even a later level down, which I'll talk about in a sec, for like higher level conversions is going to be great. But ultimately, yeah, that's really the only lever you can pull within a Performance Max campaign. There's not a lot changing. You don't even know, unfortunately, right now, where leads are coming from. You can't tell if your lead came from YouTube, if your lead came from PPC. And so, yeah, it's really important to just have conversion data that is trackable and also a higher level in order to get the right data from a Performance Max campaign.
Oh, can you retarget people with the Performance Max campaign, or is just like initial traffic?
You can retarget with the Performance Max campaign or remarketing, typically through YouTube or display. You can really, you basically set up the campaign and you choose whether you want to do a remarketing campaign or whether you want to do a PPC campaign, and does all the rest. So yeah, it's we don't ever really have Performance Max as our sole campaign for a client. It's always just kind of a supplement, and that's how I would treat it.
Yeah. So it's kind of a more of a DIY campaign.
It is a DIY campaign, kind of. It's just it can get out of hand with spend, so you need to be careful. If you give it a budget, it'll spend it in really, really fast. So you just have to be a bit careful. You obviously just set your budget per day. But yeah, it's where Google wants everyone to head. But as of right now, the quality is kind of back and forth. And I'll talk about AI Max, which is a very similar campaign.
It kind of, for me, when you talk about this, I mean, before it was the display ads, right? It's kind of a next-gen display ads right now, because display ads were usually cheap and etc. And people were using them to get like ton amount of traffic to the website.
It works great. Like if you're an e-commerce company, right, you need a ton of touch points in your ads. You need your ads to show everywhere. It's great. If your budget's big enough, we have a couple of companies that, like Trendsy was an e-commerce company, a ton of touch points. They wanted to show their ads everywhere, get a lot of traffic from different places. And it works well because it'll put you everywhere, right? Gmail, put you in YouTube, and also have you that coverage in PPC. So yeah, it's a bit of a DIY. You can definitely set it up yourself. It's pretty easy. You just got to monitor it and make sure the performance is good.
Yeah.
And now I want to talk about AI Max. So this is even newer. This came out at the beginning of this year. It's very similar to Performance Max, except now just think of Performance Max, but only for PPC, so only for search. And so with AI Max, you're getting promised a few things. So first thing is there's an AI layer, right? And so again, if we're just talking about search, someone types in best CRM for small teams, as you can see here, the AI layer matches that intent and picks the ad. So up to this point, we've had what we call dynamic copy. And so that dynamic copy is you can choose a type of keyword, right? Whatever keyword they're searching, plus CRM software, right? So if someone types in, like an AI CRM software, they type in, B2B sales software, it'll show up as the copy, right? And the copy kind of puts that together. Now the AI layer matches, it just creates the copy itself, whatever the query is going to be. So whatever that query is, it now creates that copy automatically, and it's only for PPC, and it also matches the intent, whatever they're searching for. So there is an AI layer that just helps connect whatever the user is searching and then whatever product it is or whatever service that you have to offer, which is nice. The last thing they do talk about, which I think is what everyone will be interested in, but they're like pretty wishy-washy on it, and this is how Google is with new products, but they do promise you get listed in AI overviews, which is the way everything's going, right? So if someone types in essentially in their presentation over the last year, people have gone with LLMs, people have gone from best SEO agencies or best SEO agencies in our media to who are the best SEO agencies in our media, right? It's a very different kind of intent, and that's when you get that AI overview. And so AI Max is promising that you will eventually, if not today, get listed in those AI overviews by pursuing this and doing it with AI Max. So this is a campaign we're testing out for a number of clients. It's working, again, probably about the same hit rate. We don't put too much budget towards it, but overall it's performing well. The main thing I see in it is, again, CPC is cutting not even cut in half. It's a fraction of what it typically would be. It is still a lot of bot traffic, a lot of unqualified traffic with AI Max campaigns. But again, the CPC is so low that you might get 5 to 10 leads at the same cost as what you might get 1 or 2 leads on a typical or an exact match PPC campaign. So we're still testing it. I think these are 2 campaigns we're testing out if you have enough budget and you are, it's not your main driver of success. It's something you want to test. Both these campaigns, I would definitely recommend to add into a grouping on PPC campaigns.
So basically, the way I understand this, yes.
I was just going to ask Grant, how would you define enough budget?
Enough budget. Performance Max and AI Max, you would just need to dedicate at least $1,000 to $2,000 as a test budget. So I'd say you have to have anywhere from, like, minimum needs to be $5,000 a month, I would say, to be able to test this plus your other campaigns. And yeah, it's not an end all if these campaigns don't produce the results you're looking for. Not only that, but you also need to make sure your landing pages have CAPTCHA. They're effective landing pages, that you have some security set up, because again, if you just have a standard form for these campaigns, you will get a lot of spam. So just making sure you have a CAPTCHA, you have at least a type form, right? Some kind of form experience that's a little more difficult to complete will be helpful for these campaigns. Otherwise, you're going to end up with just a ton of not true form submissions.
Yeah. So as far as I understand, the Performance Max is the next gen display campaigns. AI Max is the next gen search campaigns, right? And the AI Max it's only work kind of, you set up the same way, right? The keywords and everything. It just like tests the and changes the ad copies. Do I get it right?
Yeah. Well, just to be clear too, Performance Max does cover search as well. So Performance Max does search. It covers every product. AI Max is just search. So it's just exclusively search. If I was breaking this down to make it like really simple, but doesn't sound sexy, is AI Max is essentially an AI powered phrase match campaign. So it's a broad net, right? Whatever that means. And so it has like this layer of AI intent behind your keywords, and it changes copy dynamically. And then they really get you hooked because they tell you that you might get, shown up in AI overviews, right? But both these campaigns are super black boxes, right? You can't see anything really beyond like how it's doing overall, conversion wise, traffic wise. And so you're not able to see, did this person come in through YouTube? Does this person come in through Gmail? It's just kind of all out there. And you just hopefully, you just see the campaigns, what they're producing, and you go from there.
So basically, if I want to, for example, set up an AI Max campaign for digital PR services, can I set it up on an exact match keyword, or is it just up to it to decide?
That's up to it. Yeah, it's up to it to decide. So yeah, all the keyword matching, all the the bid types we talked about go out the window with AI Max and Performance Max. They're going to set it up themselves. I will say a tip, and this is helpful to know for these, you can see search terms, right? And so when you see search terms inside of, I don't want to get too in the weeds, when you see search terms inside of Google Ads, you can go to search terms, review what you're bidding on, and add negatives as you typically would. I would treat Performance Max and AI Max as kind of phrase match and broad match kind of campaigns, because you are going to get a ton of keyword volume, but you will see that. And so if you see a keyword like, that's not actually a good keyword for your business, you can still add that as a negative, and these campaigns will work off of that.
I see. And then you also mentioned something interesting, that sometimes you might get bot traffic and etc. from this. How do the brands secure themselves from being clicked on their ads by bots to, secure their budget for people that actually are searching for ads?
Tales all this time. I wish there was a perfect way, but bots will find you. They're persistent. Right? Yeah, no matter where you go, no matter what you do. We pay for a software called ClickCs. It's CILCK. Let me just show you. So we do pay for this. It's not too expensive. The only issue with this kind of company is actually, I don't know how well it works, right? Because we still get bot traffic, but it says it's working. So I'll go ahead and plug them, but they're ClickCs. They clean up your marketing funnels from invalid traffic. I forget what the pricing is exactly. It's like $100 a month. Unfortunately, it's kind of expensive, but it does protect your site. If you are spending a lot of money, or just $5,000 to $6,000, what's $100 more bucks, right? It's to kind of protect the traffic a bit more. I don't want to say this is 100% effective because it's not. We still get bot traffic. We have this for every single client we have, and we still get bot traffic, spam traffic. But I think this is somewhat helpful. But for the most part, this is really to really reduce bot traffic, go with an exact match campaign. You're not going to get a lot of bot and spam traffic through that. For AI Max and Performance Max, there's no way of getting around it, right? Especially the Performance Max, you're showing up everywhere. So that's just the nature of that game.
Yeah. This is the bare minimum you can do to protect your
Yeah.
10K budget.
That's exactly $100, right? It's a great idea. I wish I had that company because you never know if it works, but you got to pay for it. So,
I think an important note with AI Max and Performance Max is that you can expect them to improve over time as you gather more conversion data, though, because once you start generating conversions with these campaigns, Google now has that data on what a conversion looks like, and it'll become better at targeting prospective leads that are likely to become conversions. So that's why it's so important to feed each one of these campaign types the right type of conversions, because that's literally the only lever that you can pull to guide the targeting of the campaign and to influence the ultimate performance. And so if you have that set up over time, as you generate more performance data, you should see improved quality of traffic and improved cost per lead.
Yeah.
Yep, and that's a perfect segue. Conversion data is maybe one of the most important things and something we really focus on at Duo, because as Taylor was saying, for kind of a lot of these new campaigns, it's really the only lever you can pull, right? We touched on it a bit. In our opinion, there's about 3 levels to conversion data. I'm going to start with level 1, which is like what we call micro conversions. So you can think about micro conversions, especially if you're a SaaS company. We don't have to do this as much for home service companies because there's a lot more volume, right? Scheduling someone to do or a modeling appointment or something like that, or call about your exterior siding is a much easier, frictionless experience than doing a $100,000 a year SaaS, right? Or signing up for some big demo. And so level 1 here would be CTA clicks, video watches, something that doesn't have a lot of friction and it's just simple. Because if you're running a Google Ads campaign, you're spending $5,000 a month, and you do have $100,000, a year software or something that you're selling that's more high ticket, it's very unlikely you're going to get a ton of conversions in that first month, right? And so you need something to give Google and say, hey, this is going well, like this is a good job, these are the right people. And so we'll typically start a campaign with a simple bidding strategy, and then just making sure that the people who are coming in are doing something we want them to do. Again, maybe it's watch the explainer video, maybe it's click on the CTA initially just to get to that first demo page, something along those lines, just to get conversion data in. Now, once you get to that next step, and again, whether you're a B2B SaaS company or whether you're a home service company, for home service is typically the first step, which is primary conversions. This is form submissions, this is phone calls, this is demo requests. But for SaaS, this might be the kind of level 2. That's essentially it, right? So you want to be submitting off of or firing a conversion off of form submissions, firing it off of a calendar booking, things like that. And this is, I would say, where most people start as primary conversions. And I think this is where you're hopefully going to get enough data for Google to make optimizations and get the campaigns to where you want them to be. Now, after 2 or 3 months of running campaigns, maybe longer, you should have a good deal of data in there, right? And if you have a CRM or you have the ability to have a developer work with offline conversions, this is really where level 3 comes in. And this is something we do that I think is really impactful. Because once you have enough conversion data, that's great, and Google thinks it's doing a great job, but you might start seeing, hey, only 2 or 3 of these are qualified, right? Not all of these are qualified leads. Not all of these are perfect leads. Some of them have been, but not all of them have. So level 3 would actually be, for example, we use HubSpot a lot. It would be, we don't want to pat Google on the back when they just get a form submission, right? Those aren't good enough, or just a phone call. We want to pat Google on the back and say you did a great job when they become an SQL in our pipeline, or when they, even more ideally, when they become a customer in our pipeline. So if you have something like HubSpot or a different kind of CRM, you can send that data back into Google within 90 days and say, hey, great job, you did the form submission, but you actually just created an SQL. You can even add conversion data or conversion value right back into that data. This is all data that's going to make Google much, much better at finding the kinds of people you want. And so ultimately, the goal for most of our clients, almost all of our clients, is to get to level 3, where we're now optimizing Google ad campaigns for CRM and pipeline events, rather than just primary conversions or micro conversions in the top 2 levels. But that's ultimately where we want to get to. You do need a good deal of conversion data to get there. But yeah, that's where we typically want every single client and where you should want to eventually get to. Any questions?
So basically, do I get it right that, for example, you run ads and then people are coming, say, submitting a form, and then you've got a CRM that is being populated with the leads that you just received, and within 90 days you can just export the list and send it back to Google. Is it correct? And then
that's a manual way. You can absolutely do that. So
for example, right now, CRM, we have like more than 5,000 leads piled up, but it's not from 90 days ago. It's like over time. We can.
So you might as well. It's not going to hurt. You can give it a shot and see what gets matched. The biggest thing is you need a GCL ID, so Google Click ID. That GCL ID is a unique identifier that tells Google who this person was outside of their first-party data, like first name, last name, email. That stuff's helpful too. If you want to give that to Google, it can still maybe do a match back to that person. But ultimately, you want that Google Click ID in order for Google to know who it was that clicked and have all of that data.
Exactly.
All of our leads come in with a GCL ID that gets assigned, and then if you don't have a CRM that automatically does this, again, HubSpot does, we'll set up an offline conversion so that when a conversion comes into our sheet, we grab the Google Click ID, we grab their information, and then we send it into Google immediately when they become that SQL or become, whatever it might be. GCL ID is the number one thing you need to make sure the Google Click ID or Google offline conversions work really well.
Got it.
And you can set that up just with a simple Google Sheet. I mean, that's what we do, where we send all of the leads into a Google Sheet. It's got the GCL ID, and then a column that says, qualified, unqualified, opportunity, the different stages, right? And then once that is triggered, Zapier sends it into the Google account, and there you go. You've got your offline conversion that's improving your conversion data.
Yep. And if you have HubSpot, it's, again, really simple. There's a tab, the marketing, plan. It's called, under marketing, it's called events, and you just go to events and you can set up the conversions there. You got to have pipeline value. We could do that on another call. We could do a whole webinar on that. So we can talk about that one too. And then landing page.
Now I understand why you like building a custom landing pages and driving all the traffic to that landing pages, so that you can kind of get exact output with the leads in the spreadsheet and attribute it to that campaign rather than, for example, the existing page on the website. Is it correct?
Yeah, it is. It's why we like to kind of own that. It's a closed loop system, right? So we try to develop, because we used to try to just go into their system, do all these things, and ultimately decided we have control of everything. It's a lot easier for us to manipulate the data and push it into different places and get it to the right place. So yeah, it's like with Chris from Rocket Moving, which I'm gonna show, right? Like we even have the conversion value from their CRM being pushed back into our sheet that then gets pushed into Google Ads. And so his Google Ads campaign runs like a e-commerce company, right? His value is assigned to every single deal that he closes. And so you can see how much value is being generated by Google Ads alone, which is very similar to an e-commerce company. And then obviously landing pages. I do want to touch on that. We do a lot of landing pages, which are going to be absolutely critical for PPC, at least for now. There's somewhat seemingly obvious stuff to us, but making sure it's fast, mobile first, no friction. I'm going to go through a landing page in a second here that talks about the hero image. In my opinion, the hero is the most important part of any landing page. We've done this data. It's kind of an 80-20 rule, Pareto principle, but we've done it to test ourselves on all of our landing pages. About 80% of people not make it past like the hero section of your page. And so it is critical that the hero has everything a buyer really needs to review it, make a decision, and choose whether or not to move forward to the next step, right, of that funnel, which is either to book a demo or learn more or whatever it might be. And so I can walk through that in a sec and just go through that as I go through the Rocket Moving case study. These are things to watch out for. I will talk about this, but honestly, it's better just to have, I think we'll send this deck out, just some tips and tricks to make sure you're looking at as this thing goes through. So I do want to talk about the nuances of SaaS strategy and local service strategy for a second, because the fundamentals do stay the same, but there is some difference here depending on if you're a SaaS company or if you're a local service company watching this. I just want to talk about when it makes sense. So this is, again, kind of to both, but PPC makes sense at the end of the day for a SaaS company when you have product market fit. Honestly, if you don't have product market fit, PPC can sometimes be a waste of money. I think the perfect example, I had this in a previous deck, was like if you had plant-powered phone charging, right? Super cool idea, right? Everyone, that'd be awesome. If you could charge your phone with a plant, that'd be really cool. However, no one's searching for that right now because no one knows what it is and there's no awareness around it, right? However, if you're selling power banks for phone charging, right, everyone has those. There's a ton of search volume for that. That's a great fit for PPC. And so use those two examples just because, you know, we do have a lot of companies in the B2B SaaS space. They have amazing ideas. They have amazing products and services. But a lot of times when you try to go to PPC on that route, it can be really slow. I'm not saying it's always a bad idea. You should maybe try it just to see what you can get. But ultimately, if you're really trying to scale the company and grow fast, product market fit is really good. How are you going to get there on PPC? And so if you look here, just awareness again, PPC is not for that. Again, you could do some display and some YouTube, but ultimately it's more of a Meta or a LinkedIn approach. Your interest and decision is really where you want to be making decisions and then conversion stage. So that's PPC and when it makes sense in a nutshell. And then I want to go through the channel mix. I do have LinkedIn ads, Meta, and YouTube here as supporting roles. But ultimately, what we do a lot of times with a client, let's just say you have a $5,000 a month budget for total ads. I always think it's a good idea to mix in some Meta, mix in some LinkedIn remarketing, because you might be doing your primary search with Google and PMax, especially on Google. You're going to be spending a lot of money for those clicks, right? You might be spending $40, $50 per click for a qualified person who's ready to buy. You want to nurture that click as much as you can because you just spent 50 or 60 bucks for it. And so it's worth it to follow them around at a very low spend, maybe $500 a month on something like Meta, and just making sure they see you continuously, right? They have those touch points because it means that they are in that small percentage of the market that's ready to make a purchasing decision. It's worth it to go spend the money on, making sure they see your brand and you're the first person that comes to mind when they finally move forward. Any questions, sir? Cool. So yeah, that's just again the nuance of B2B SaaS. And then we have local service, so a little different as well. There are some new channels that come into play here. So for local service company, we have a lot of local services that want to spend their entire budget, $3,000 to $5,000 on one channel, something like Google. We will always do it, but we see the best results when it's a multi-channel approach. Again, similar to what we talked about in SaaS. Meta doing some top of the funnel, getting some offers out there, crafting some offers, and then at Google for the main keywords. And so ultimately, we want to always ask the question of what's the smartest way to deploy the $5,000 across any channel or all channels. Sometimes it's one channel, very rarely when it's just they're trying to scale up. But ultimately, if we have enough budget, I'm always recommending that we do multiple, especially if you have a sales team. Again, Meta, sure, it might be some lower qualified leads, but you're going to get way cheaper CPCs. You're going to get way more reach. And when it comes to local service companies, you're usually trying to obviously conquer a local area. The impressions and the reach you're going to get with your brand, you don't see the gains necessarily from it from like an attribution standpoint, like every lead comes from where, but locally you can target a specific area and show your brand a ton, which, it's the cheapest it's ever been in history, right? So I just think Meta is sometimes undervalued for home services because it doesn't directly relate to ROI, but the brand and the awareness you get from that, is amazing. And you can hit 20,000 people in your local area for $400, right? $500 per month. So I think it's always worth something to do, and it's something that more companies should be exploring in home service space is Meta. Again, this is just talking about the local mix. Google Ads, LSA, Bing, and Meta, which I'll talk about in a second here. So this is typically what we mix up. Google search, specifically Bing, we always do as well, which is just another variation of search campaigns with Microsoft. It's seen some uptick in usage. There's a limit you can spend on Bing. There's pretty much no limit on Google. You can spend as much as you want because there's enough volume and traffic. But with Bing, there's not as many people searching. So I do see great leads coming from Bing, but there's typically a point of diminishing returns on Bing. And so just because there's not enough volume. So you can spend a certain amount there, but ultimately it doesn't go too much further past that. The only other thing I haven't talked about is LSA. So these are local service ads. Again, this is specific to home service companies. Local service ads are maybe I could show you real quick. So if I type in home remodeling near me, you should see, and all of our ads are going to show instead because I have So right here, you'll see these ads show up. And these are going to be your local service ads that are what we're talking about here. Now, this is also a different kind of platform for Google PPC. These are pay per lead rather than ad spend. And so a lot of our clients do love these because someone calls in, there's no landing page, there's no anything. You simply call or you message. When you call, if they're a qualified lead, Google listens in, you get charged for that lead anywhere from whatever you say your budget. Maybe it's $50, maybe it's $100. If they're not a qualified lead, people looking for work, they're looking for a completely different service, then you will not get charged for that lead. And so having this, again, supplement your PPC, which are going to be these ones down here, getting you to show up in GBP, which Maria helps you out with as well on the SEO side, right? Suddenly, you're now covered for the entire first page of Google, right? For the first 2 scrolls. So ultimately, this is where you want to be. It's the most valuable real estate. So if you're a home service company, you really want to be in all 3 of these areas, showing as much as you can.
So with all that being said, I guess before we hop into case studies here, Maria, I want to be cognizant of time. Would it be better for us to move to Q&A right now, or do you want to run through a couple case studies right quick?
Maybe I think we can go through the keywords real quick. There are a few of them, and then we go back to the case studies.
Sure. The keywords, what do you mean by that, Maria?
Say it again, sorry.
Oh, I think maybe you misheard me. I was just asking, should we move to Q&A now for the sake of time? Or
yeah, we have several comments in the comment section. So if you want to answer those real quick, and then we go back to our case list.
Sure.
So the first question is, what's the best way to group the keywords?
The grouping the keywords, it kind of depends. And this is actually a super useful topic for something like ChatGPT or Claude. Grouping is important, and I typically do it, or if you're a home service company, we typically do it by like services, right? So service items. And so if you're let's just say a remodeling company, what we'll typically do is we'll have our basement keywords for basement remodeling. If you're in the Midwest, we'll have another ad grouping for kitchen remodeling, right? Entirely kitchen. And then we'll have another ad group for maybe whole home, right? And that also works for B2B SaaS. So if you're a B2B software company, and again, we're talking about CRM, and you're talking on B2B, you also you are applicable to e-commerce brands. Again, those kind of different service types. And the biggest thing for keyword grouping, I will say, is I can't tell you how many times we've come into an agency that's ran our account or ran an account for whoever taking over, and they do one campaign, and it's actually one of the case studies, one campaign, one ad group, and that one ad group is inclusive of brand, it's inclusive of every single keyword under the sun, it's inclusive of exact match keywords, phrase match keywords, broad match keywords, and it spends a ton of money and it brings conversions, but ultimately it's super inefficient, right? Because you do not want your brand name in there. You're not paying for those anyways, right? People are searching your name. All the broad match gets mixed in with the exact. And so ultimately, yeah, you want to have a good structure, but something like Claude or GPT, as long as you have the keywords, will organize those really well for you.
Yeah. The next question is how to do keyword research for ChatGPT ads.
Honestly, I don't know yet. ChatGPT ads, I don't know if that's the question.
Yeah.
ChatGPT ads unavailable yet. Yeah. I'm not sure. Keyword research for ChatGPT ads ChatGPT hasn't launched their ads platform yet. So until then, I don't know.
So you mentioned the bid range. Is there an algorithm for calculating the most effective and minimum bid needed for the first position?
If there's an algorithm, I honestly don't know. For the minimum bid.
I think it's more so about, general like rule of thumb. We would say, like, if you're just launching a campaign, start with $100 a day. So it's about a $3,000 a month starting budget, right? Just to kick off your campaign, start gathering those initial clicks and get an idea of what the baseline data looks like within your funnel. From that data, you will see on the Google side what your average position is for your ads. And if you're position 2, for example, and you're trying to be position 1, likely Google is going to say, all right, if you increase the budget and increase the the number of conversions and the quality of your campaign, you will be placed in a higher position. So budget's one thing for getting that top position, but it's also about the quality of your campaign, which is going to come down to your ad copy, your landing page, your conversion rate. All of those things are going to contribute to how confident Google is in your business in promoting it to people that are searching for keywords that are related to the service that you offer. And so it's one piece budget, but then the second piece is just having a really quality campaign.
Yeah. And then we have like the minimum and maximum bid, right, for a certain keyword. Do you guys typically, when starting off a campaign, do you go with the lower bid initially and then gradually start increasing it?
Only sometimes. That's when you do have to target CPA, different kind of bid strategy. So we talked about like the kind of like the match phrasing. We didn't talk about like bid types as much. And so, yeah, if you have a target CPA bid type, that's where something you would do that. We don't typically run that too often. We've tested all bid types. We usually always start with maximize clicks when we start a campaign. It's maximize clicks to start. That gets us conversion data quickly and gets the campaign kind of started, because the learning phase takes a little while. It could be 1 or 2 weeks. And so you want to get through that as quickly as possible. And then we usually switch over to maximize conversions, target CPA, or sometimes maximize conversion value. And so maximize conversions, in our opinion, is typically what leads to the best results, specifically for home service companies. Target CPA can help. Yes, it will, right, you can set that bid amount, which you're trying to achieve with that CPA. But ultimately, yeah, we typically rely on maximize conversions to push the campaigns forward.
Sounds good. And then there are some questions that we already have covered in the in our conversation. The next one is that is the starting average budget for SaaS and local services the same? If we have a local car repair service, what budget would you recommend?
Yeah, that's a great question. Funny enough, there's a lot of local service companies that spend more than SaaS companies that we've experienced, because the ROI is straightforward, right? So yeah, I would say the budget actually a lot of times is around the same, but it kind of depends on what that CPC is when you're doing that initial research, right? Of like, what can I expect? A good rule of thumb is I try to aim for 5 clicks a day, right? 4 to 5 clicks a day, because that's what you want. If you have $100 cost per click, which, for example, some HVAC companies, right? Like, so if you're trying to target HVAC in the US, like that can sometimes be $100 to $120 per click per day, right? So in order to get 5 clicks a day, you need to be spending like $400 or $500 a day, right? Which is an expensive campaign. So for a car repair service, I don't know what the keyword cost would be, but you'd want to, yeah, just if you do the research, look at it, say it's $20 or $30 a click, or maybe less than that. You want to try to get 5 of those, 3 to 5 of those a day. So whatever that math is what you'd want to spend on for the campaign.
I think the nuance there is also, if you're working with a marketing agency, and let's say the marketing agency is $2,000 a month, you need to factor that into your total cost of marketing and like whether or not it makes sense at all to advertise via PPC. Because if your budget, like all in on marketing, is $3,000, you're spending $2,000 on the marketing agency and then $1,000 on the campaign. Even if the campaign does produce well and the conversion rate is high and you've got a reasonable cost per click and the cost per lead is okay, and you're actually closing those leads at a fair rate, you're just not going to have enough volume for the math to actually make sense, right? Where you're covering the cost of all of your marketing. So really, you want to consider that when you're thinking about, does this make sense for me to even invest here? You know, general rule, right? The larger your ad spend, the more the more the math makes sense for the agency spend. You want the percentage that you're spending on the agency to be as small as possible. That way you're going to get the most bang for your buck when it comes to the ad spend and like its returns in relation to your all-in marketing spend.
Yeah. Another interesting question is, when does it make sense to bid on a competitor's branded keywords? What conversion rate do you typically see from competitor brand campaigns? So
this is a great question, actually. Again, the competitor campaigns are interesting because a lot of clients want to do them when they start off. I do think competitor campaigns are auxiliary campaigns. So they're a supplemental campaign once you have things kind of going and firing in the right direction. Competitor campaigns do ruffle some feathers. So it's just something to keep in mind, right? You might not be bidding on your brand name right now, right? You don't have to cover that real estate. You don't have to pay for it, right? So if someone types in Loopex, just use your company, for example, right now, Maria, you don't have to bid on it. Everyone types in Loopex and you show up organically, right? If you start doing a competitor campaign, what typically always happens after is you start looking at Loopex and you're going to see 2 or 3 competitors now pop up right above your first organic search result, right? And so you're starting a little bit you're inviting some people to start bidding on. Now, keep in mind, Google does give preference to whoever owns the brand name. So if you start now officially having to run a brand campaign, so now you're paying to own your real estate every month, right? It is going to come at a cheaper cost than the other people who are bidding against it. So I do think competitor campaigns can work really, really well. You can steal a lot of traffic and get good conversion rates. We have a company that one of the ones we're going to go over, Rocket Moving. I think we have a 30% conversion rate, 34% conversion rate for competitor campaigns. It's not where all of our budget goes, though. It's just a small piece, and they can work really well. I wouldn't bid on too many competitors, though. I'd find the 3 or 4 you really want to carve out, and typically are much larger. And so that way you can bid on them, and you get the traffic for it and the volume. But just again, keep in mind they will start bidding on. You'll simply get added really easily into their competitor campaign, and then you are going to be start fighting for your own brand.
Yeah, I just noticed pretty recently. For Loopex Digital, there were 2 different companies that were bidding on our keyword. So I think it's a good time for us to start.
Yeah, it's really simple. Brand campaign is really easy, right? That takes 10 seconds. You just type in your name and then you launch it. And I think we even do that for our own brand just in case, right? And it's good to have, especially if someone also doesn't know your name, right? They type in Loopex just with an X, or they forget what the name is and it's close. You can type in those variations so that way people still see your ad.
Yeah. So probably, there are a couple of more questions in here related to SEO and PPC. But I really want you guys to show at least one of the case studies, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Let me, I think someone else has to approve the screen share again. I think
Yeah, Lilith will do it now.
Okay.
It's all good? Okay.
I'll go through these quickly. I have one B2B SaaS, which again, for any of the SaaS companies, I think will be interesting. And then I have one for a local service company. So I'll go through red flag first. This is an issue I think that's going to plague a ton of companies in the SaaS space that maybe are listening. So they are trying to stand out in a crowded market, right? And so they have product market fit, which is awesome. It's great. I have product market fit. This is great. The problem is the dilemma is once you get product market fit, that means there's a ton of other products on the market, right? That means that a lot of companies you're going to be competing with. So when we started with them, we were trying to figure out ways to be better, right? It was was it more features? Are they cheaper? They're not cheaper. They had less features than their competitors. And they were losing to them in every battle, right? They were losing against Alert Media, which is a bigger company. They are cheaper and they have more features than they even do. And so it was okay, what can we do here to try to get you to stand out? And then ultimately, it's what can we do here to make you different than the rest? We did a complete analysis of all of the reviews. They have a ton of reviews on Capterra, a ton of reviews on G2. Again, can't rely on that solely either because every company in this industry has a ton of reviews on Capterra and G2. But we did a sentiment analysis of it. And this is back in the day. We didn't have AI, which would be really easy now. You could simply copy and paste all of your views, right? And we ended up figuring out that the thing they talked about the most was how easy it was to integrate Red Flag into their system. And I should probably share what Red Flag is first and foremost. Red Flag is a mass emergency notification software for enterprise companies. So if you're having an emergency at, say, Kroger or a massive company, right, Google, you would need to send out notifications to 2,000, 5,000 people, right? A ton of people, a ton of employees really quickly. And so that is the software they provide. Not very sexy, not very fun. But ultimately what we figured out, again, is that the customers, what they loved about Red Flag was how fast and painless the process was. And so we did a positioning shift where we tested the landing page a ton of times. And what we ended up figuring out and just realizing was that every prospect was given this task in a meeting, right? Go find us some mass emergency notification software that we can use for our company, right? And so what we really just want to do was build a headline, build a landing page around like that idea, which was just, this is really simple to integrate with the fastest system to integrate. Sorry, this is moving. So let me just show you what that kind of looked like. So yeah, this was, it was deploy in minutes, no IT required. And we just really changed the headline out so that it was really clear. And I have this here. And so this is from a different case study, but this is essentially the headline that this is the actual headlines of all of their competitors, right? You're seeing up top here. Protect your people and operations, protect your people, protect your business. Just a bunch of stuff around protecting the business with safety, right? We went with the fastest emergency mass notification software to integrate. And this changed everything from our conversion rate to how quickly people wanted to get started and move forward in the process. And all it really was a simple headline shift. This was the actual page. We had our review here. There's a form that's supposed to be here. It's not live right now because this is a staging site. But this was the actual landing page. And this is the landing page we used for almost 2.5 years because it just converted so well and people just love the experience. And so the biggest takeaway from this is, again, don't try to be better in your market because it's very difficult to be, right? Everyone says they're the best. Everyone's got great reviews. Everyone's got all this stuff. It's a lot easier to be different and just looking at your customer reviews, figure out why it is that's the reason that they move forward with you and really try to hit on that. The next one is going to be, here's some results you guys can look at too. This will be Rocket Moving. This is a client actually we share, Maria, with Chris. So, and this is a perfect example of the ad group question. Their ad group before was by a different agency, and this is what agencies at time to time we see do to kind of prop up results. They had a huge campaign with one ad group, branded keywords, rocket moving keywords, right? All of these keywords that didn't make a lot of sense to all be together. And when you have a branded keyword inside of a big ad group, your conversion rates will look great, right? Because branded keywords convert at like 50, 60%, right? Like they're looking for you. They're going to come in and find you. They're also just, it's very combined with phrase match and all this other stuff. It was just a very leaky funnel. And then all of that traffic went to a homepage, which wasn't conversion optimized. It was a fine homepage, but it just wasn't conversion optimized. It wasn't optimized for getting people to that next step. So this is a very common situation we run into with like a ton of home service companies that work with either agencies that are small or freelanced agencies, someone who just doesn't really know what they're doing in there. We made a simple fix and we created a high converting landing page, converts around 30% to this day. It's been on for almost 1.5 years. We created different ad groups, one for local moving, one for long distance, one for commercial. And then we got rid of that brand campaign and moved it into a separate ad group entirely. So it was on a small spend and we weren't measuring those results or tying those results into what we were actually producing. This is an important one because I do want to break down how important a hero is. This looks like a very normal hero, and it is for the most part, right? But there's actually a lot of stuff going on here through the testing we've done. So if we look at here, this is kind of an anatomy and more of a breakdown of that hero. And so we have our social proof front and center. They have a ton of it. We want to get that forward and just really show it. We want to know what this company does really quickly, right? If you're in home service, there's no need to be sexy. It's not sexy what you do, most likely. Just tell the people what you do and provide the proof. And so we have that here, some value props. This is the only value props we were working with. Again, 100% satisfaction, licensed, insured, and bonded. We have another highlight of that CTA to get them closer. We have anchor links up here. These look like nav bar, right, where you go to a different page. They're not. This is just to help the user navigate this landing page. So if you press on Why Choose Us, it takes you to the Why Choose Us section. If you press on Pricing, it takes you to the pricing section of the same page where you don't have to leave and get distracted. We have our instant estimate in CTA here. This is the estimate that actually did the best with an estimate. This is the CTA that did the best amongst all the ones we tried. We had Get Free Quote. We had Get Started Today. Get Instant Estimate was the best one. And then the biggest change we made, we tested a ton of different images. This image here, which, when you think about moving, right? A lot of people show boxes or they show a truck of like on their landing page, right? Of like, here's the truck we have. It's so cool. They want to know if you look at this, the psychology of it is they just want to know who's going to be in their house, right? Like who's going to be moving their stuff. Ultimately, you're working with the people at the moving company. And so this image here of the actual team that'd be coming did like by far the best out of all the landing page shows we tested. This is really helpful. And what's funny is if you go to a ton of moving companies, you won't see the team. You'll just see a picture of boxes or a picture of a truck. And so there's a lot of stuff going on in this hero. Again, we really focus on it. It's the most important part of your landing page by far. Again, 80% of people won't make it past it. So, so yeah, that's kind of the case study there for Rocket Moving. We have a 30% landing page to date. The return on ad spend is 4 to 1. I think in month one, we did around $40,000 in revenue in the first month, which is somewhat rare, but for moving, it was pretty straightforward. Key takeaways here, you know, you guys, I'll leave this in. You guys can look at that. I'm sure you can go through any time, but yeah, we can go back to Q&A. If you have any questions, let us know. You can go to our website for home services at goduo.co, or you can check out our B2B SaaS website, duostrategyla.com. That's it.
Thank you. This has been pretty helpful, first of all, for me. I knew a few things about PPC. We're not that much into PPC, you know that. Especially the new campaign types. They were pretty helpful. So yeah, guys, thank you for joining. I think about 40, 50 people were actively watching us. Thank you for, you know, being so active. And thank you, Grant and Tyler, for joining me on this webinar. Very helpful, very to the point, very visual, very practical. So yeah, I think we went over 7 minutes, but it was a really productive webinar.
Of course.
Thank you, Maria. Had a great time.
Hopefully
Have a
soon.
good one, guys. Cheers.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.